What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Good Wolf Project. I'm your host, Jerry Scarlato, and today I am super excited because of, well, two things. Number one, first live interview in like a year and a half, which I'm excited about. It's been a long time.
Didn't know that.
It's been a long time. And number two, this is when I get to embarrass Cassie just a little bit. Somebody that has become very important to me over the last couple of months and has significantly changed my life over the last couple of months, which makes no damn sense and is very confusing for everybody involved. But as we've said from the beginning, I'm not asking questions and I'm not going to pretend to ask questions. So, but that's not what today is about. So I'm not going to make that about what today is about. Cassie is a strength conditioning coach at Northern Kentucky University, and also now officially kind of an athletic trainer too. Is that something
official,
like
unofficial?
Yeah, like they had to actually hire you for it? Or...
Yeah, per diem work.
Yeah,
in the hospital. Yeah.
So double duty action.
Yep.
Very nice.
Well, hybrid.
Yeah. First, before we get into, well, I guess I should say today's going to be a Coach Talk episode, which means Cassie and I have 3 questions that we're going to ask, which I think are going to be very interesting questions. And it sounds like she already has some follow-up questions to get me worked up and riled up, which should be fun, again, for everybody involved. But so once we get into it, we're gonna answer some questions about health, fitness, and performance. Get our input, and then that'll be that. But before we jump into that, I want to talk about your journey, because you've gone to like 35 schools and done a whole lot, which is absolutely amazing considering the short amount of time that you've been on this earth. The amount of things that you've done and the places that you've been is pretty incredible. So start with college.
Okay. So University of Maine grad, was a collegiate athlete myself, so played softball.
Yes.
All
D1.
4 years.
This guy was just a D3 wannabe.
It's okay.
Thank you.
Love you.
Thank you.
Then got my degree in athletic training. So that is my sports medicine is my kind of wheelhouse. That's where most of my experience is in. So got my degree there. And then for a year in between grad school, went to the Naval Academy. I was an athletic training intern there, which was amazing. Worked with the swim team, the wrestling team, the football team. Learned more working with Navy wrestling than I probably did in 4 years of college. Just the exposure and the type of athletes you work with there is insane. And that actually was the first time I really started involving myself voluntarily into the strength conditioning world. Just kind of going to lifts when I can and living in the weight room, which I continued from college. But
what prompted you to do that?
Interest, strength conditioning, and the piece of that in college sometimes outweighed me actually playing softball itself, which
Fair.
is fine. Know your role.
Fair.
But yeah, I always just enjoyed it. I started in high school. My dad was a college football coach, so I was fortunate enough to have collegiate strength conditioning coaches teach me how to lift. So that kind of carried through college. And then from then, I just really enjoyed being in that space and then continuing my own lifting stuff. So I always just try to insert myself. But I also think as an athletic trainer, that's a huge piece of being successful in what we do.
Yep.
Knowing what our strength conditioning coaches are doing, what other pieces of the doctors, all that stuff. The closer you can work with that group, the better. Especially if they're kind of like late stage rehab. If you can get a strength conditioning coach to kind of help you out, but they can be in that team atmosphere, make sure they're still doing things properly. That's huge. So yeah, Naval Academy, went to the University of Georgia for grad school, degree in kinesiology there, worked with the softball team, which was awesome. SEC softball, slight step up from UMaine softball.
Big time.
No offense, go Black Bears, but
but nonetheless,
yep.
Let's be real.
But it was cool because obviously being a softball player myself, having that building that rapport with my athletes, being a softball player, understanding what they're feeling, what they're going through, not as a student athlete, but also a softball student athlete. So yeah, 2 years there.
Did you notice a demeanor difference between athletes at Maine and athletes at Georgia? Like, what were some of the biggest differences you noticed, either physically or, I mean, physically I can't imagine, but physically or from a characteristic standpoint?
Honestly, not that much, which you'd think at the higher level. Yeah. I think every student athlete, regardless of if they're at a D3 level or D1 level, it really doesn't matter. I think being a collegiate athlete in and of itself, regardless, is impressive. Requires a certain demeanor. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I've met some very high Division I athletes that are lazy and don't work hard. They're just gifted. They're gifted. Athletic. Yeah. And they put the work in. Obviously, they're there for a reason. But I have met some Division III athletes, sometimes two-sport athletes, that I am shocked when I find they're at D3 and versus D1. But that's a choice they make. They maybe want to go an academic route or something like that. So I wouldn't say, at least the experiences I've had versus D1, D3. I think the biggest thing is not necessarily the athlete itself. It's just what that athlete has available to them. And it's unfortunate that a lot of those athletes don't take advantage of what they have available to them. So if I took
what would you say what are the things that stand out?
Nutritionists, academic support, athletic trainers. Some of these D3 schools, you have one athletic trainer for all the sports. Some of these D1 schools, you have one athletic trainer for 15 athletes. So not taking advantage of what those athletic trainers know, going in and get the extra stuff done, things like that. But, ultimately that all comes down to time management. And whether you have it or not at the D1, D3, whether you're not an athlete at all.
I feel like we're talking about later today.
That may be coming up. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, there's, in all my experiences, D1 to D3, I wouldn't say that I've met one team that I'm like, wow, you're a division, maybe Navy wrestling, honestly. But
yeah, you've mentioned, wrestling in and of itself, it's like D1 like sports, and then there's wrestling just in general.
That was my only exposure to wrestling ever. Yeah. So I really guess I can't compare it, but 12 years later, there's still that elite group that will always like, dang, those are some freaking athletes. Yeah. So
wrestling's a different beast.
It is. So.
So University of Georgia.
Yep.
That's where you got your graduate kinesiology. What happened after that?
After that, well, then we started moving places. So went back to. I'm originally from New England, so went back to New Hampshire. Had a connection at a D3 school up there. First full-time job as an assistant athletic trainer. Was there for a year. And then that is the year I got my CSCS in strength conditioning. So I've had that for about 10 years now. And I just really wanted to see what personal training was about. I never really done it before. So I made a huge swap. I got out of college altogether and went to a bougie fitness club in Boston.
Bougie.
That's just how.
That's a great description. I mean.
Worked with, we were just talking about general population.
Good old Gen Pop.
Yep.
That's where I spent my whole life, so I get it.
Great experience. It was exactly what I was looking for with regards to getting kind of in the one-on-one coaching, personal training sort of thing. But pretty early on in that, I realized that type of training, and again, in that sort of fitness, in the setting that I chose, they want lifetime clients, which I get. That's how you make money.
Yep.
But for me, I think, again, based on my education and working with athletes, and especially as an athletic trainer, my goal is to get you better and then move on, get on with it. Like, want to do, get back with the team, stuff like that. So that mentality with regards to, I want to show you how to do all this stuff, but I don't want you to have to pay me $150 to
ongoing.
Yeah. And some of the clients I had, we were just literally talking. I was like, are we going to
Are we training today?
We're going to do some activity.
No.
We're going to
Okay.
lift some weights. No?
Okay. We're going to talk.
So.
Got it. Psychologist day.
Yeah. So again, the type of gym that I was in, that particular setting was not a good fit for me. Went back to Maine, worked at Maine Maritime Academy. First of many times I've been in Maine Maritime Academy.
Pause.
Yeah.
What was something that you learned that did translate to, that you learned at the bougie gym that did translate into what you did later?
With
just in general, what's something that you learned working with general population that maybe helped you?
I got very good at regressing and progressing and cueing. With athletes,
generally you only regress them if they are hurt.
Correct.
Generally speaking.
Yeah.
They can all pretty much do anything you want them to do.
Sure.
They should be able to, especially D1 athletes.
Yep.
You should be able to do anything I tell you to do.
Yep.
But with general population, for sure, like, you don't really know what in the hell you're getting into.
Yeah.
So
again, I think the athletic training thing with regards to taking a good history, that was something that was drilled into us in undergrad. And I still, to this day, taking history, asking the right questions, especially for Gen Pop, like, what's your history? You have any injuries? Like, and just really trying to understand what their motivation is. And that's how I guess something else, like, I kind of pulled, even with working with my athletes, like, you assume that their motivation is to be good at their sport, but that's not always the case. They might have other motivations, which is fine. Like,
well, you told me about one of the girls, I forget what sport she played, but she was just like, I don't know. Yeah.
Her dad wanted her to play the sport. And I was like, well, why do you want to play the sport?
Yeah.
And she didn't know how to answer.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of gets lost in sometimes with these athletes. They just kind of get in this flow of doing the same thing since high school, middle school. And then when they get to college, yeah, you're throwing in some academic rigors and travel and all that stuff. But sometimes they lose the passion or forget why they're even doing it.
Yeah.
And I see that. Like, you can see that when they show up in the weight room every day, when they're on the court. And sometimes they just need to be reminded, or sometimes they're just burnt out.
Yeah.
So again, you see that D3 and
all
D1
the way
athletes
through for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Maine Maritime,
small stint there. Mainly filled the gap. Sorry about the guy that wasn't able to come back, but there was an athletic trainer that left.
Sorry, fella.
Kind of out of the blue, and they're like, and I just happened to be there, so I filled. I was an intern for about 5 months there, which is great, and then went to Middle Tennessee State.
Good old Murfreesboro.
Yep. That was a great experience. I worked with women's basketball there. That was an experience. I had 14 athletes year round.
I didn't know it was women's basketball you did there.
Yeah, women's basketball. Cool. So very kind of like NKU. Basketball is kind of like their primary sport. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so men's and women's basketball. Yeah, but that was the huge jump to the strength conditioning. I got really close with the strength conditioning coach that was working with women's basketball. We had a pretty big staff there, so we worked together every single day. I went to every single one of their lifts. Mainly, again, it was my only team, so why not?
Yeah.
But I got to the point by the end of that 2 years, like, he was having me help write programs and make adjustments and things like that. So really appreciate what he did for me, because he let me fail and talked me through a lot of, like, why are you choosing this? Why are you choosing that? I've never had anybody do that because that wasn't my job. So I just was writing stuff or creating my own stuff. But that was the first time he's like, try this instead of that. Or, yeah, you want to write, the next 2 weeks of programming? Okay. But he trusted me to do that.
Wow.
So I've really learned a lot. I think just, again, translating that athletic training to strength conditioning. And I would say that's probably when my passion really started switching over, because the next 5 years after that, all my athletic training positions were 5-6 years were hybrid positions by choice, not on paper.
Yeah.
So I wasn't paid to do that.
Yeah. It was additional work.
Yeah. So I ended up going back to Maine Maritime.
So how much time has passed so far?
Good question. 7 months. No.
No, I'm lying. 9 months.
Okay, so I was at New Hampshire for a year. Personal training / Maine Maritime for a year.
Yeah.
Middle Tennessee. So 4 years.
Okay.
4 years.
All right.
So at this point, I've had my intern position, my grad school. So 4 years full-time out of school experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which I think is important for two reasons. Number one, if you plan on getting into the college like cycle, this is what you should expect.
Yes.
You should expect to, number one, move around. Number two, just be prepared to adapt to whatever you can. And then number three, you should take on more responsibilities than what you are hired for, which I think most people just do a shit job of anyway in all of their endeavors. I think, again, if you're going into the college system, you have a different demeanor than somebody who goes and gets a corporate job anyway. Like someone who goes and gets a corporate job, they want to go somewhere, they want to settle down, they just want to I'm gonna go get this job, and then I'm just gonna do whatever, and I think that I deserve whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like, I think if you go into the college system, you have like, you're an ex-athlete, or if you weren't an athlete, you were around sports or something to that degree.
Sure.
So you have that demeanor about you anyway, like you're gonna do more.
Yeah.
Than what you're gonna do.
Yeah.
But
it also helps when you just don't know what you want to be when you grow up. So you like to expose yourself to a bunch of stuff.
I would say that's the most effective way to figure that out, is expose yourself to as many things as possible.
Yeah.
In as many environments as possible, as effectively as possible, of course. But
sure.
Nonetheless.
Sure.
Okay, I forgot where we were.
Okay, so so I tried Tennessee for a little bit, went back to New England. I always ended back in New England.
Yeah.
So back at Maine Maritime Academy, I'm an assistant athletic trainer. My second year, though, my first year there, I started writing programs. Women's basketball, Craig Dagan will always be my number one fan when it comes to strength conditioning. He pretty much, I knew him from that previous stint at Maine Maritime. I've known him for a long time. I grew up there. He pretty much just said, I trust you, write my team programs. We want to be in the weight room. I'm like, cool.
Okay, I'm in.
So I, just as an athletic trainer, I was a certified strength conditioning coach, but that was not
your job description.
My job description, right? So I started with them. I took them down. We pretty much trained all year round. Warmed them up before practice, did speed agility work. He pretty much just said, here's some time, do with it what you want. I was like, awesome. So I, to this day, still write him programs, and I will for eternity. And even if he could switch his schools, I'll probably still write him programs if he wants. So that was my first exposure. And then that second year I was there, we did have a strength conditioning position at the school, but it was tied in with a football coach position. So it was a 50-50 there. And myself, our head athletic trainer, and our other assistant kind of said, that needs to be in our department, not a football coach department. So we talked to our AD, and we got that half strength conditioning position switched to sport performance. And then at that point, I started programming for other teams, started doing a little bit more stuff. We got a varsity weight room. I was fortunate enough to be able to help design that, put some quotes up on the wall, what do we need for equipment, helped all that stuff. So, that space is still functioning to this day.
Yeah.
Still got my quotes on the wall.
Yep.
Weight room rules.
Yep.
Actually, even some of the handwritten notes about wipe the benches down. Still my handwriting. Still down there. Somehow. Nice. I don't know if it's deteriorated by now, but so that was my start of really hybrid positions. But again, I created that. I wanted to do it. I was already working with the athletes in that regard. It was worth the extra time to me. Because that's when I started noticing my personality and my demeanor as a strength coach. The second I step in that weight room, I'm just different. I don't know how to describe it. I just love being down there. And I do love athletic training, I think, but it's just a different type of approach. But yeah, I just really started noticing, even if I was in a terrible mood that day or pissed off about something at the athletic training, the second I step in the weight room, I forget all that stuff. I'm just all right, let's get after it. So I feel I still have that demeanor about the weight room. So
I am 100% about that. And I haven't even seen you. Obviously we train together, but that's different. So last night, we were setting up. She's doing a challenge for volleyball, and we were setting up together last night. And I just sat and watched you. Of course, I do that pretty often anyway. But like even the setting up of things, you move at a different pace than when you do in life.
Yeah.
And so I can imagine when athletes are in there, what that looks like.
Yeah.
Taking that to a different level. So
anyway, main maritime. Then I moved to New Hampshire and worked at a high school, which was not something. This was all around COVID.
Yeah.
I got a job offer, but it was contingent upon that school having sports, and they did not have sports. So I was just kind of floating in free space. Another connection. If you're in athletics, networking is the only way to get jobs.
Yeah.
So
not what you know too, you know.
Yeah. So I had a connection and got set up with the high school. And it was literally, I didn't even interview. The previous athletic trainer just 2 weeks before school started was like, yeah, we're not coming back. So my connection knew the AD at the high school, knew I was just like waiting on this hiring freeze or whatever it was, which luckily it was the whole year. So that would have been a lot of freeze.
Yeah.
Yeah. Showed up, talked to the AD for about a half hour, and we started writing COVID protocols. And I was like, so am I working here? Or
yeah.
Yeah, it started like a week later. And just, again, like our high school is fortunate. We had in school all during COVID, except for one hybrid or one like when every Wednesday was a hybrid, but we had sports all through COVID. We wrote all of those protocols for the high school. They were we were going off of like our local hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was different. Yeah. So I met all of my student athletes with masks on. So the next year was really weird because I was like, that's what your face looks like? Okay.
Not what I expected.
But yeah, that year they also built a brand new weight room, which was conveniently right next to the athletic training room. Mm-hmm. They did not have a strength conditioning coach. They never have in the past. The only team that really ever strength trained was football. Pretty classic bench, squat, hang clean, get in, get out sort of thing. I can say that because my dad's a college football coach, so I can I can get after football coaches as much as I want. Like I feel like I got that card, you know.
For sure. Yeah.
So yeah, this was another opportunity for me to the high school, obviously. College, you're kind of there all day. High school, you're there from the end of school till the end of sports. Like so you got a lot of kind of wiggle room.
Yeah.
But yeah, the new weight room was just sitting there. I was like, this has got to be used. So for the first 2 years, I was the strength conditioning coach, and I just did it.
Took it and did it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But that was probably the most proud I've ever been about probably anything professionally I've done, because I took, something that didn't exist, created a sport performance program, and had almost every single team in that school, male and female, weightlifting regularly by the end of the time I was there. So football still obviously was in there, but my female athletes.
How long were you there?
3 years. So I ended up getting paid as a coach for that last year, but quite honestly, like, I don't know why I say that, because it really didn't matter. Yeah. I would have done it regardless. Yeah. It was a nice little extra, but that was another place I noticed in the athletic training room. That was what I was hired for. That was my job. But the second I literally fight 30 steps from the training room to the weight room, something pissed me off in the athletic training room. Like, I got to go train this team. Second I walk in there, like,
different. Just
go.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I got to the point where teams would go in there. I'd write a workout on the board. I could bounce back and forth. Coaches would, kind of monitor. A lot of upperclassmen really took a hold of, I kind of had like leaders on teams. So if I wasn't in there all the time, the coach was in there. It was an extra set of eyes from our classmen. Yeah, not a huge space. We had a hallway. We got creative. We'd go outside sometimes. Like, it was just fun. Mm-hmm. And so even now, like, I know teams are still weightlifting. Like, we had a women's crew or rowing. Mm-hmm. They all loved it by the end of it. But like female high school athletes that were not only scared to go in the weight room because big scary football people.
Yeah.
And honestly, the old weight room was like a tetanus shot waiting to happen, but it's kind of fun anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were intimidated by it, which is fair.
Yeah.
Scary.
For sure.
But yeah, being able to have kids go in there and pick up weights, like look at a weight and be like, there's no way I'm going to pick that up. I'm like, you'll surprise yourself.
Yeah.
And just, want to be in there. So it was huge. And I've even had, this was, yes, a couple years ago. It's been 2 years now. I still have athletes that will text me about, they went off to college and went to the rec center and they, started their own weight training thing, but they felt confident enough to even go in there. Like stuff like that is what I think mirroring. Wow. Now just making this mirror back, but like to the personal training I did, like that's a victory to me. Like you don't need me to be there to do a workout. You feel comfortable enough on vacation or going somewhere where if you would body weight or if you have weights available, like enough about form and how to create a workout that you can just do it on your own and feel good about it. Like that's a win. That's coaching to me. Not just me like
holding
pushing
your hand
you
constantly over and over again.
Which is great. Like, hey, if that's what you want and I have the time to do it, like
it takes both.
Yeah, I'll kick your ass, but
yeah, it takes both.
Yeah. But like I'm not going to Florida with you this week. Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Nothing? Okay.
Yeah.
Or you could do something and feel good about it and not be like, well, I don't know if my form's good. Like new athletes, when they become aware of when they feel their form break down for the first time or they feel like, oh, something felt a little off, that is a huge step for me as a coach for those athletes to experience. Because right then is when I know, like, yeah, I can see form breakdown, but I can't see if your core is activated. You got to be able to feel that. So like for them to understand that, I feel like is like one of those first huge steps for young new athletes to experience. And then they just take that with them as they get more exposed to more things, heavier weights, things like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
For sure. Yeah. At the gym, the girls are always concerned about like training people too much, not training them too much, but like coaching them up too much. Like my theory going in was always one of our values was education. Like we want to be educational coaches. We don't want to be personal trainers. In my mind, they're different. Like being a coach versus being a trainer.
Sure.
A trainer is there to hold your hand the whole time. And if you ever leave, then probably you're going to lose all the results that you got, generally speaking.
Fair.
That's probably most personal trainers.
Yeah.
A coach actually teaches you how to do things, tells you why it's important, gives you things to do outside of the gym so that you're actually improving and you're actually growing and you're actually doing things outside to make it sustainable. And what most personal trainers fear, actually don't want and fear, it is that leaving, is that moving on.
Yeah.
But what you find actually is that the more you actually reinforce, the more you teach, the more you show, the more you do, the more you do these things that you're talking about that a coach should do. Number one, the more loyal people become and the more likely that they actually are to stick with you and stay with you if you're in that world. And then number two is, ironically, the ones that weren't going to do it anyway, they're the ones that think, or the ones that aren't listening to what you're saying and aren't taking in the coaching. They're the ones that are going to go, hey, I think I've learned enough. I'm going to go try this on my own.
Yeah.
But really, they haven't learned shit. They don't know a damn thing. All they feel like is they've came and they've done a routine long enough that they can take that routine all of a sudden and translate that on their own, and they've got their own fucking willpower and so on and so forth, which is all bullshit because they didn't pay a damn bit of attention anyway.
And then they go to the doctor for low back pain.
Yeah, exactly. So, so there, in my mind, there is no reason to hold back. Like you should always give as much as you can.
Sure. You
should always coach as much as you can. And that's why we always called ourselves coaches at the gym. We didn't call ourselves personal trainers.
Sure.
The mentality is different in my mind.
Absolutely.
You want a different outcome in my mind. Not that we were trying to kick people out by any stretch.
Right. But like you said, if people enjoy the atmosphere that you've created and they know they're getting better, worst case scenario, they go on their own, then they either plateau or they're like, well, I miss working out with my crew, then they're going to come back for that reason too.
Well,
and you know you care.
Like we've talked about the last couple of weeks, a coach, even a coach can decide, and basically everything that you've done that you just covered, like you were naturally doing all of this anyway, like you taking your responsibilities well outside of the realm of what you were supposed to be doing. You've done that your whole career. And a coach can decide whether or not they're going to stay within their realm. What does a strength conditioning coach do? Well, they teach kids how to lift and they make them more athletic. Okay, that's one aspect of it. But the question is, are you going to let that be the only aspect of it? Or are you going to expand that out and actually add that extra layer so that that translates into their whole life? So that not only are they a great athlete physically, but they're also a great athlete mentally. Because as you and I both know, if you and I are the same speed, the same strength, and so on, but our mentality is different, the person with the better mentality wins. Sure. 100% of the time. Yeah. 100% of the time. So you as a coach get to decide if you want to take that next level. And the challenge that we talked about, which we talked about this morning, you had your first like official challenge day, which was super exciting and super, I imagine being there, like the energy level that was there, even though you only trained and worked out for 10 total minutes or 15 total minutes, but the energy that was there because of this other personal development aspect that you layered onto it, because you decided as a coach to go outside of your realm of responsibility and actually do something I don't want to say worthwhile, but do something
different.
Yeah. So like build a person, like that's what being a great coach is about. Yeah. That's what being a great coach is about. And so like you have basically decided to do that your whole career, which is amazing because most people just never even decide to go outside of any realm of any responsibility. But anyway, I don't even know where I started with all of that. But so after the high school, what'd you do?
I was an interim director of sports medicine at Maine Maritime again. I mean, I think there was a bunch of things that had changed in my life, and they also were in very drastic need of an athletic trainer, let alone 2 or 3. So the timing and of everything that was going on, it just worked out. It was a great opportunity for me as well. I've always just been an assistant athletic trainer. So moving up to a director of sports medicine position was a jump. But it was good. I mean, like it was because I'd been at Maine Maritime before. I pretty much showed up day one and just started working, which was great for everyone involved because school started like 2 or 3 weeks after I started. So there's a lot of paperwork and a lot of onboarding and all of that stuff for the athletes to get them going for day one of preseason for the fall. So it was myself and one other athletic trainer for 300 athletes in all of our sports, including football. We brought football back that year. So it was
fun.
Yeah. Fun. So yeah, it was, that was the first time in a long time that strength conditioning piece was the most, I don't know, unfeasible is a word. I don't know why that's going. I just wasn't able to do the strength conditioning piece. Yeah. It just wasn't
because you had so much
of my role.
You literally had to put all your time over here.
Yeah. Yeah. There were other responsibilities. As the assistant athletic trainer, had the extra time. As the director of sports medicine, I had other responsibilities, admin, things of that nature. That I also, my other assistant athletic trainer was, even though we had these titles, we worked and did the same amount of stuff. That was like the best partnership I've had in a long, long time. And he was a redhead as well. So obviously we were fully functional.
Two fiery redheads going, just let's make this,
we were
make
crushing
this shit happen.
We were crushing it. Yeah, so at that time, they'd changed the structure of the strength conditioning. They split it up into 4 different coaching positions. So our 2 wrestling coaches and 2 football coaches were also strength conditioning coaches. So again, while it wasn't part of my role, our athletic director knew, I've been certified for 10 years now. He knows my passion for it. And because every time I've worked at Maine Maritime, I've done some sort of strength conditioning, but I really had to kind of reel myself back. But I did, the number one thing I could do was reach out to those 4 strength conditioning coaches and be like, hey, I have experience. I love doing it. Let me know if I can help you with the program, if you have questions, all that stuff. They just didn't take advantage of it, which is kind of frustrating for me because, one, it kind of gave me an ability to still keep my feet in there.
Yeah.
I had one coach that, we bounced ideas off of, but the strength conditioning piece just kind of, again, it was a new role. Everyone had new roles. There were new coaches, not only for their own sport, new sports that were added in. There was just a lot of adversity with regards to that stuff. So it didn't really come to form as I'd hoped, but it was a very busy year for our staff. But yeah, that was the first time that I hadn't really done strength conditioning. Wasn't really a huge piece of my year, and I didn't like it.
Didn't feel, yeah.
Yeah. Again, I think, every role that I have, I always kind of incorporate it in. Like I'm doing rehab, which to me, late stage rehab is strength conditioning.
Yep.
So, I still was able to do more functional stuff that way. And I did take kids to the weight room, but it's just different. So yeah, after that, I pretty much decided, again, with a lot of other life changes, I decided like, I want to be a full-time strength coach. Like I know my passion is there. Like I'm just going to start applying for jobs. So on paper, I don't have any full-time strength conditioning positions, and strength conditioning, in my opinion, is still very grandfathered profession. Like you can have all the letters and all that stuff, but again, it goes back to knowing people.
Yeah, if you don't know.
And a lot of jobs say 2 to 5 years experience full-time, and I wanted to work at the high level. Like I wanted to push myself to work with some higher level athletes if I could. So I just started applying places, and in my description, I think me being an athletic trainer and still being a licensed athletic trainer now, like I really tried to plug that being a huge benefit as me as a coach, because injury prevention is huge right now, right? If everyone's injured, then who's on the field? And I think that's a huge piece of strength conditioning in and of itself.
In general.
I think a lot of coaches have made that change. I've seen a lot of coaches make more of an effort.
I would argue that's number 1. That's rule 1 is don't get hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, NKU, one of the, right on their strength conditioning website, one of their big things is injury prevention. So I applied, started talking to our head strength coach, and it just flowed. We just had the same sort of mentality when it came to coaching. And, later I found out I had my second Zoom interview with some of the coaches and stuff. And, it wasn't anything on my paper, on my degrees, my whatever. It was my personality and my passion for what I was doing. Like everyone's got a bachelor's, everyone's got a master's, everyone's got this and that. It was just the way that I presented, how I approach my coaching, that again, when I talked to those coaches that were on that call, that's kind of what won them over, I guess.
What gave you, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, and then my holistic approach, nutrition, sleep, like all of that stuff. It's like you said, it's not just lifting, picking up heavy things and putting it down. It's all these other pieces of being an athlete that I think as a strength coach, but also as a sport coach and as an athletic trainer, you need to, it's all part of it. Like you're constantly sprinkling education to these kids. How much they absorb is up to them, but
facts.
It just constantly needs to be, it's not just lifting weights. It's not just practicing. It's everything. Plus all the stuff that they're supposed to be doing or could be doing on their own. If they're not doing that, like I always say is like, you guys are working your ass off in the weight room, but you get 3 hours of sleep every night. You don't drink any water, and you eat 400 calories a day. Like this is the biggest waste of your, unfortunately, it seems like the most productive time, but it's actually the biggest waste of your time, because all of this hard work you're putting in for 45 minutes is
not getting maximized because of everything that you are or are not doing outside of this.
Correct. So, but again, they're not going to change all those things overnight. It's just patience and slowly sprinkling like little nuggets of information as much as you can. And, even when that 1 or 2 athletes start drinking more water or start eating more food and start noticing changes, like Yeah, I've got a whole team of kids, but like if I have one or two kids that make that change, I'm like, let's fucking go.
Yeah. Well, and then the other ones see it.
Right.
And then some of them will follow along when their friends are getting better, because either they don't want to fall off the wagon, or they're like, oh, my friend's getting better, so I want to get better, and so on and so forth. And it potentially leads to that trickle effect. So if you can get one person to jump on board, then you have a much higher likelihood of other people, of other athletes jumping on board too. What gave you the confidence to, and maybe it wasn't confidence, maybe it was just like, hey, I'm sending it, like I'm going, and let's see what happens, to apply to jobs that you weren't qualified for. And then once you were having the interviews, like what you were actually talking to people, what gave you the belief that you were the person?
Maybe a little bit of both. There's definitely some of just, I'm just going to send it. Mm-hmm. For sure. Again, knowing
why did you not let something stop you?
I need to change. I wasn't happy with what I was doing, and I knew I could be happier doing the thing that I knew constantly made me happy. There wasn't really anything that strength conditioning that I've ever, and to like all these positions are like, if I'm going out of my way to add additional work just because it makes me happy, just because I know it's important, then that probably means something. And I'm still doing my other job, like still did really well as an athletic trainer. But yeah, I just, I think after not doing it and moving around so much for a job that I was like, meh, like I'm good at it, but meh. I didn't want to sacrifice anymore. I was like ready. I was ready to move for something that I wanted. And yeah, I think it was just, yeah, a little bit of both. I think the confidence when I went into it, I think every time I go into an interview, I'm like a little nervous, but then, I mean, even when I'm talking about it right now, like I just feel, I know that coaching, and yeah, could I learn more about sports science and all of the coaching in healthcare is endless, right? You're always learning, but there's always this consistent of like, I want to see people get better, and I want to see that they want to get better. Like that piece, whether it's with Gen Pop, whether it's with athletes, whether it's, you know, a one-on-one personal training, like when someone does something they don't think they can do, or they're doing better than I think, like I'm over in the corner, like grinning like a goddamn goon. Like, and they're like, what are you smiling about? I'm like, I'm just so happy. I don't know. But I was just talking to a personal training client. Like she was doing freaking renegade rows with push-ups, like perfect form, set of 10. She's like, I don't know if I can do 10. I'm like, yeah, you can do 10. And she like knocked him out, no break in form. And I was just like, so great.
So proud of you.
She's just like ready to move on. I'm like, okay.
Give me a second. Just give me a second.
So yeah, I mean, I think anytime you can have anything in your life that you're just doing it and it just instantly makes you happy, you probably should follow that path. And again, some people don't experience that. And why
do you think that is though?
They don't want to.
Tell me more.
I think some people get caught up. I know we've talked about all these topics, but I think people get caught up in what they think they're supposed to be doing because that's what everyone else is doing. And so, I mean, I think about like people that, you know, have the 9-to-5s behind desk jobs. Some people love that. That's awesome. I mean, good for them. But I know more people that have those jobs that are stressed all the time. They don't feel like they have time to do anything they want to do. They maybe have oodles and oodles of money, but like, when are you going to spend that money if you're stressed all the time?
Yeah, complete wreck.
Yeah. Your
health's a wreck.
Right.
Yeah.
And like spending time, like, you know, all these obligations of family and friends and having to do this and that and whatever. They just get caught up and they feel like they have to do those things, when in reality, you don't have to do any of those things if you don't want to. So again, I'm saying all this with so much confidence, but like only until the last year and a half that I really started. I
just figured this out yesterday, by the way.
I mean, the grand scheme of time frame, it really was like yesterday. But But when you do figure it out, your life can change dramatically. I shared that with the volleyball team this morning.
Did you?
I did.
Yeah.
I just said, like, hey, that, my accountability was subpar in my personal life. But when I started becoming accountable for all of these other things that I was doing, like, the second I moved here, I knew I was happier. And then everything just compiled from there. Like, my job is still great. I've been here for 6 months now, right? And, when you first start a new job, it's kind of like crazy and whatever. And you're like, oh, I'll settle in and it won't be. But like, I still go to work and I'm like excited. But again, I create those exciting moments, like the challenge. I created that. Like, even when I work in my teams, like normal day-to-day lifting, like I still am excited for them to come in. Like, they might be doing the same lift that they've been doing 3 or 4 weeks, but they all come in with different attitudes. They all come in with different stories. They're excited to see me. Like, it's just fun. So, once you figure it out, it's great.
That whole figuring thing gets you every time.
Yeah. So, yeah. So again, people choose what they want to choose. And change is scary.
Facts.
Very scary and uncomfortable. But I've learned, that's another thing I've learned. Embrace it. Because it's uncomfortable. But on the other side of uncomfortable is usually growth. So.
Almost always.
Yeah.
Most definitely. Almost always.
So. Yeah. Just a normal conversation between us.
Yeah. No doubt.
Daily conversation.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, responsibility is a scary thing, and that's why that is definitely why people don't do it. Because it's easier to just let somebody else take responsibility for your life and for you to bitch complain about it than it is for you to take responsibility for your life and potentially fuck up and potentially lose your way and take time to figure it out and so on and so forth. Luckily you had been through, luckily, however you want to translate that, but you had the uncertainty of it was something you were totally used to. So that part wasn't even that part alone is what stops most people. It's the uncertainty of it.
Right.
But uncertainty's been part of your life from day one because your dad literally moved you around too. So like that was a barrier that was completely eliminated for you. So I think that's a big one. Sure. Most definitely.
Sure.
But there's still that one, there's still the one aspect of it that you had hung on to for a long time where you let other people decide where your personal life was moving. And then once you actually said, no, I'm going to decide where my personal life was going, that's where you really seem to start to thrive.
Right. Yeah. And it took a lot of build up to that point for sure. But yeah. So.
Well, great
intro to my life.
Great
you really signed up for it though, because you knew there was a lot. I knew. Like, hey, what's your resume look like? Well, what page do you want to start on?
Which binder you want me to get out?
Yeah.
We'll start with this binder.
It's a lot.
Should we answer some questions?
Sure. Is that why we're here?
Did we show up for that?
This isn't just meet Cassie. Okay.
All right. Question time.
So, got these questions from my athletes because these were some of the top ones that kind of came up where we got a lot of check marks next to. So, first one, I'm struggling to find time throughout the day to eat. How can I get more food in during the day?
You had to start with this question?
Yep. I think it's a great transition to what we were just talking about. The other two are about supplements and stuff. That's fun.
It is. I'm struggling to find time to eat. How do I get more meals in throughout the day? Okay. You want to start or you want me to start?
Why don't you start?
So all of life is priority management. And actually, ironically, this morning I put out a post about life being a big void. And a void will be closed up, whether you do it or whether someone else does it or whether another thing does it. So with your time, it's just a big void. And the void will collapse. In other words, things will fill into your time. And most people look at their day and they're like, well, I've been doing things all day, so I don't have time to do things. But what they're not questioning is, are all the things that I'm currently doing things that I should be doing? And then if it's not, how do I change that so that I can do things that I should be doing instead of just things? Because any task that you have or don't have will take up the amount of time that you allot to it. So the phone is the perfect example of a thing that just takes up time. There's no reason to it. There's no rhyme to it. It doesn't add a whole lot of value to most people's lives for any reason. The phone uses them. They don't use their phone. All of these things. So it's something that takes time. It fills the void of time. But at the end of the day, you're like, yeah, I've been doing things all day. But if you look at your phone, and luckily for all of us, we can look at our phone and see how much time we spend on it. You spent 3 fucking hours on your phone. So if you're real with yourself, you can go at it from a different perspective, and you can go, okay, where am I actually spending my time? What am I actually doing with my life? Look at your last 3 to 5 days, literally write down everything that you've done, how much time you're spending on all of those tasks, and then be real and say, is this something that I need to be doing or I need to be spending this much time on? And if the answer is no, then you have time. You're just choosing consciously or unconsciously, usually unconsciously. And that's the problem, is my favorite quote, unless you make the unconscious conscious, it will dictate your life and you will call it fate. Most people don't question the statement, I don't have time. They just say that. And then they don't do anything about it. So unless you become aware of where you're currently spending your time, you won't know. So first, write down what you're doing. Then be real and say, do I need to do these things? And then just start to shift, like sift it out. Start sifting things out. And once you start to sift things out and you're real with yourself and you're like, hey, what do I really... That's the problem, is this is a very in-depth. So I'm trying to be as high level as I can be. But like if you're in college and you're a college athlete, your things in life are school and sports, right?
Yeah.
Like some of them, a bunch of them probably have jobs too. So we'll say school, sports, and job. You have 3 things that you're focusing on. If your time is not maximized to make the most out of those 3 things, then you're wasting your fucking time. It's not that you don't have the time. It's that you haven't taken the time to figure out where you're spending your time so that you can plug those priorities into your life and then fill the void.
Right.
Yourself, instead of let something else fill the void.
Yes.
Right?
Correct.
And that's the tricky part.
Yeah. So time management, 100%. Talk to student athletes all the time about that. When I was in college, I didn't have time to do anything but something productive. Being an athletic training student, you have class, you have clinical hours. I had practice and lift almost every day. I had to sleep, I had to eat, and then all my other classes outside of athletic training classes. So like pretty much from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., I had something going on. And if I had a half an hour between, maybe I got a class early and I'd practice, if I had a half hour, I was in the academics like lounge doing something, trying to, because I was like, all right, because I still want to be in bed by 9. 9 o'clock bedtime all day, baby. But yeah, it's what time, just literally just looking at, like you're saying, peace out. We've done this activity with some athletes before, like, okay, write in your class schedule. Okay, write in when you're sleeping. Okay, write in, and like you see these huge white chunks of nothing. I'm like, all right, what are we doing in here? Taking a 3-hour nap. So you're mini sleeping in the day.
Right. You've already slept 10 hours at night.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're adding another 3. So we're at 13 hours of sleep. Go on.
Okay. So you're done practice at 5. Okay. Go have dinner 6, 7. All right. You went to bed at 2 a.m. What were you doing from 7 to 2? Well, I was doing homework and then on my phone or playing video games. I'm like, okay, so not only did you not get a quality 8-hour sleep, which you could have got up to 10, I think, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
You were studying all night or doing all this stuff. I hate when people say like, oh, I didn't have time because I was studying all day. I had an athlete literally yesterday did not come to lift because he said I was studying all day. That's a lot of studying.
That's a lot of studying.
That honestly,
you were very dedicated.
Impressive
you were
skill.
very dedicated.
Impressive. And my response was, you know what's great for a study break? Exercise. So I just like the way that they perceive stuff is so catastrophic. Like I don't have time to do anything. All right. Just like you're saying, like anything is a broad, like let's bring it down to earth here and piece it out. But the other thing I think a lot of athletes struggle with is, like I said, I get it. There is a lot of stuff, like, especially if you're in, I have a lot of nursing students that have clinicals all day long, literally all day long, but they're in a hospital, right? But some of those kids, they'll bring lunch with them. They'll bring stuff with them. And when they get their, designated breaks or whatever, that they'll eat during those times. So I get it. That one is a little more like, okay, but when you're just on a day-to-day, you have class, maybe 8 to 10. Some kids don't have days without class, which I think is so bizarre. Like, you don't have class all day.
So that's good. I think you just hit on something, because in my mind, I want to start talking about like the broad problem. Yes. And I think that's important.
Yeah.
But let's talk specifically, like, how would you go about making it easy to eat something like throughout the day?
When I say meal, people say, I don't have time to have a meal. Okay, meals can be a granola bar and a handful of nuts. A meal doesn't have to be a Denny's Grand Slam. Like, you don't have to sit down in a restaurant to have a freaking meal. Like, it's not like a 5-course thing. It's just a meal is anything. I know you've talked about this before, like a diet. A diet is just what you're eating.
It's what you're currently
eating. It has a negative connotation because we created a negative connotation around, oh, I'm on a diet. No, you're just on an thing where you're eating.
You're always
food.
on a diet.
Yeah,
you're always
just eating food.
If you're alive, you're on a diet.
Right. So I say the same thing to my athletes. Like, okay, meals. Literally from the parking lot to the weight room, you can eat a granola bar. There's a freaking meal. Like, so when they say, oh, I'm I can't eat in class. Okay, well, how do you get to class? You're walking outside to class. Can you eat and walk and do? So they just have all these excuses for why they can't do X, Y, and Z. And I think the other piece that goes into it is just, goes into time management, but just like preparation. The night before, most of these kids have backpacks. With or without books, hard to say. I don't know. There's probably not a lot of books in there, which means there's a lot of space for snacks. That's all I'm saying.
That's all I'm saying.
And you got 2 little side things for water bottles. That's another, like, you always should have a water bottle with you. But yeah, and we were talking about how much does a loaf of bread cost?
Couple bucks.
Yeah. And say you want to splurge and get like
fancy.
Fancy.
Yeah.
Okay, $5.
Dave's Killer Bread.
Yeah.
$5.
$5.
Yeah.
Okay. How much is a jar of peanut butter? $3.
About the same. Yeah.
About the same. Okay, so we'll say $10. You can make
how many
14 PB&J sandwich or peanut butter sandwiches.
Peanut butter.
Go crazy, buy some jelly for an extra $2. Okay? So you just spent $12 for 7 meals. And that all can conveniently fit in your backpack. And you can have one knife, put it in your backpack. You can make a sandwich while you're walking. But like, and then I know I've said this before, but like, people are like, okay, then the follow-up is like, oh, how many money? Oh, well, how much money did you spend on extracurriculars this weekend? Oh, $40? That's it. That's 4 loaves of bread and 4 jars of peanut butter. So it's all just perception.
For sure.
Like, and I think it goes with the time. Like, I don't have any time. No, you have time. You're just choosing not to see it in a different way. So, yeah, most of my student athletes undereat for sure. And I think this is the main reason that they undereat is because they don't have time, but they don't take the time to prepare what they could potentially just eat on the fly. And yeah, a full meal ideally 2 to 3 times, a day, plus the extra snacks before and after training, things like that. Ideal world. I get that. You wake up late, you don't get breakfast once in a while. Okay. But like your schedule for the most part as a student athlete is the same every single day until the semester changes. Maybe your class schedule changes and your practice schedule changes. But
once it's there,
for a few months, you're doing the same thing every single day, Monday through Friday. So don't tell me you can't take 10 minutes to sit down, write your class schedule out, and then fill in quickly like granola bar, whatever, if that's helpful for them. But yeah, the not time to eat thing kills me.
Well, the prepare thing is really big.
Sure.
Failing to plan is planning to fail. So just literally taking the time the night before, set aside 30 minutes to plan and prepare something, whatever it is. Peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Like in college, I lived off PB&Js. The peanut butter and bread thing, like I would be sitting in class and I'd get my loaf of bread out. Kyle tells this story regularly. Get my loaf of bread out, get my peanut butter out, and I'm sitting there just making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Eat my peanut butter, and I'd usually have a shake with it because I'd prepare that beforehand.
Yep.
Put it together the night before, stick it in the fridge. That way you just take your shake with you and you're ready to go.
Yeah.
So a big part of it is also just that much, just taking some amount of time the day before, the night before, to plan and prepare.
Yeah.
And that alone, I think, can save a lot of headache.
Yeah.
And maybe one day where you take a bigger chunk, maybe it's an hour or a couple of hours to do some deeper planning and preparing.
Right.
Maybe you prepare whatever, 5 or 10, maybe not 10 unless you're me, but 5 chicken breasts or hamburger patties or whatever, and you just cook them up and you just throw them in the fridge. That way you can just grab one real quick, so you don't have to worry about cooking it. Grab it, warm it up, eat it. And it's just another thing that's easy and done and ready.
And for these kids that live on campus, have on campus dining, every school I've been to, no one likes college. It's not like it's home cooked. Well, it's not.
Get over yourself.
Either figure out how to cook yourself
or get over yourself.
Or get over it. Like, you still need the calories. Like, eat the same thing every single day. It's boring, but you still need the fuel. You still need it. So either get creative with what you know is there every single day or get over it.
Facts.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
All right.
I think we could spend 2 hours on that, but 2 days maybe.
Okay, next question. Opinion on energy drinks, more harmful than helpful? ?
More harmful than helpful? Yes. That's it.
Okay, next question.
Moving on.
I honestly think this will be a quick one because the amount of energy drinks consumed by athletes is unbelievable. And my first question to these kids is like why? Why are you drinking? Yeah, what are you trying to accomplish from drinking this energy drink? Most of it is energy. Right in the name.
Surprise. Yeah.
Okay. So my follow-up question is always, what did you eat today? Oh, and then I didn't have time to eat. And then we're just back in this vicious cycle of being a student athlete. It's so bad. Yeah, like most of the time if they have that afternoon or going into a game, it maybe is giving you a quick energy burst, but you're getting who knows what else with that energy burst. And it's going to be just that, a burst. So then you have the energy. Then your body has absolutely nothing because you probably only drank that and you haven't eaten in 4 hours because you've filled your meal with an energy drink. And now most of them don't even have calories anyway. So I would argue it's not the best way to get calories, but I would argue some of the full sugar ones might be more beneficial. At least you're getting a few extra carbs in there. But I know like a lot of people are like, well, this one has vitamins and minerals and whatever. This and that, but like
hard no.
Who knows what else is in there, and it's not worth that gain and like of that energy boost that they're looking for. I would say the other thing is I've heard people say like, oh, like the taste of it. I'm like, okay, like that's fair, but can we find something else to flavor water, like electrolytes or something? Like if you're, I had one team in the past that no one on my team liked water. That's another thing. Like, oh, get over it. Like, you're an athlete. Figure out how to
get
drink
the
water.
Fuck over yourself for just
drink
5
water.
seconds.
Just drink water.
But I don't like.
But we used to travel. We'd go to restaurants with boxes of Crystal Light packets, and that is the only way that they would drink water. I'm like, I'm embarrassed that I have to bring these in with a bunch of Division I athletes.
I feel like you're all 12-year-olds right now.
You need what flavor Crystal Light do you want? Like,
sad thing is,
who grows up an athlete doesn't drink water?
Like
I know,
quote unquote.
Well, there's like what soda and all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so do you have anything additional to add to it other than just no?
I mean, the simple answer is no. The long answer, without it being too in depth, is I think of things in 2 forms. Number 1, how it's going to affect me today. Number 2, how it's going to affect me long term. So next year, next 3 years, next 5 years, next 10 years, the end of my life is whatever I'm choosing to do today going to increase the likelihood of my health span and lifespan increasing to live longer and healthier longer. Make sense?
Sure.
All energy drinks, full stop, drank regularly will decrease your health span and lifespan, full stop. Done. So if that's the answer, then the answer is no, I'm not going to drink them. It's that, I mean, in my mind, it's that simple.
Sure.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Because especially doing them the way most people do them. Not eating food and using that to train, to basically burn up your endocrine system.
Or to wake them up in the morning.
Yeah.
Like, so you just went on an 8-hour fast, luckily, hopefully 8 hours sleep, maybe more, maybe less.
Yeah.
And the first thing that's going into your body is an energy drink.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's just, just from a pure, like, long health span, like that mindset. And I know especially like college kids don't think about.
Sure.
They barely
but
think about
as a coach,
tomorrow.
that's my job to.
Yeah.
My job is to think about, like, they think about in that hour and that day, maybe. But I think as an athletic trainer, as a coach, it's part of our job to see the next month, to see the next year, to see, like, because even when I'm training kids now, like some of our seniors that will say, like, oh, I'm never going to pick up a weight after I get to the weight room. I'm like, that's a fucking bad idea.
Yeah, sorry, bud. Like,
that's just a bad idea.
Yeah.
And then just move on. But like those little things too, in addition to, them living now, is like, they just, which I get, they just don't see that. But I think as an adult and as a coach, it's my responsibility to make them see that.
As a responsible human being.
Yeah.
We'll put it that way.
Sure.
Because again, most adults don't, they're children. Most adults are children.
Yeah.
But as a responsible human being. But even tomorrow. So like tomorrow when you feel tired and you're like, hey, I need an energy drink to feel tired. Just think for a second. I wonder if it is because of all the energy drinks I drank yesterday that I feel tired today.
Yeah.
Is there a possibility? And that's hard to correlate, right?
Sure.
Like that's hard for somebody to.
Or they're going to rationale another reason.
Sure.
It can't be that. It's probably
It's because I didn't get enough sleep or I went to bed late or whatever. Yeah. But it can't be because of all the energy drinks that I drank yesterday.
Because I enjoy them.
Yeah.
I don't want to give them up.
100%. Like full on. So again, it's like, be real with yourself. Is this something that I really need? If it's not something that I really need, take yourself off of them. Yes, it's going to hurt for a while. Yes, it's going to be challenging. Yeah, your energy will drop harder for a while if you actually come off of them.
Right.
For the simple fact that you've trained your body
on
them.
Yeah, sure.
That's the only reason. Like, that's it. Like, I know I love coffee. We drink coffee in the morning. And I know that if I stopped drinking coffee, I'd get headaches and I would not feel good. But I know eventually that everything will be fine. Everything will be okay. But that I don't know. That's the way that I look at it.
Yeah.
Short-term versus long-term effects.
I'll always choose food over liquid calories.
Facts. Yes.
100%. Girls gotta
girl,
get food.
Girl likes to eat.
Girl likes to eat. Okay. Last question. Should I be taking creatine? How much? What brand? So just a general, I think this is one of the biggest supplements that we get asked about for a good reason, being strength conditioning coaches. So
that's probably the one that I got asked about most at the gym too.
Yeah.
A general pop. Yeah.
So I don't know if like maybe in the last 5-10 years it's become more. I just feel like I hear more about it. Maybe I don't know. It's just funny because it's been around for so long and it's the most studied supplement ever.
Always ever.
Yeah. So I guess I want to start by as an athletic trainer and a strength conditioning coach. I can't tell you to take things. I'm not a dietitian, so I'm just putting that out there, standard of care. I can recommend.
You're so sweet.
I can recommend things all day long, and I'm only going to recommend. Food is always going to be president. If you're not getting enough food, then why are you trying to take supplements for stuff? Like, food should always be, especially high school, college level, food should always be the main driver of energy, and
they're called supplements for a reason.
Right. So I think that's also just kind of how the society is. Like, take a pill, take a powder, take a this, take a that, instead of just, eating some meat and vegetables. But pills and powders are easier. So obviously most people are going to choose that over. But so I always push whole food, like food intake for as much as possible. But creatine is one of the number one supplements that I will recommend or suggest for my athletes, or even just, honestly, I suggested it to my mom. She's physically active regularly, but there's been even more stuff coming out about cognitive health, help with concussion recovery. Like, so creatine, I think the biggest is muscle gain and energy for short burst activities. Like, that's the number one thing. It's usually creatine monohydrate, so we're clear. That's the one that's, that has been proven time after time after time after time. So we know it works. There's little to no side effects. People still, I've been asked about, actually, when I talked to my mom about it, she's like, oh, what about kidney this, kidney that? I'm like, there is the few articles or things that they've written. If you look at the subjects they do it on, they have pre-existing conditions. They have like all these other things. So again, people get caught up in reading whatever pops up on Google first. But if you actually read the article or read the information, one, where is it freaking coming from? But two, like, if you actually look into the details of it, you're like, either finishes with like, oh, well, it had 5 subjects, or like, oh, it was on one guy. Yeah. It was on one guy. That's not useful. And he had pre-existing liver issues. Like,
he was missing a kidney.
And it was cancerous. So
interesting.
So yeah. Creatine, I think, again, like, best when paired with resistance training or short burst activity. I think even on the off days, I think it's important to take it. So, because some people say, oh, I only take it when I'm doing my workouts. You're pretty much just taking it every day. 3 to 5 grams is the most recommended. And I think most of the studies that I've read, it always says up to 5 years safety. But I think that's just, the length of these studies. But I don't think there's really just no pitfall for taking it. Really. It's one of the safest, most studied things out there. So I will say, though, when they talk about like what brand, I'm always going to push for third-party tested. So where is it coming from? Because we know, supplements aren't regulated. So anything in GNC. I usually also say anything with a shiny label, or is it sparkly, or if it rhymes with a swear word, it's probably not the best choice. But again, if it's third-party tested, fantastic. Like, we have those, a couple logos that Safe Sport and NS, so I always make sure that if I am recommending something, that they either double check with me or the athletic training staff that, hey, I'm thinking about taking the supplement. What are your thoughts on it? Is this a good brand? Before they go in and purchase it, first of all, but before they take it.
Everything I'm going to say is probably the exact same thing that you say, but I'll see if I can say it in a different way.
Sure.
Because everything that you said is exactly what I'm thinking. First, creatine monohydrate, don't fuck with anything else. Like, the rest of it it's fine, but you're just paying for a fancier, different name. Creatine, I can't even tell you any of the other ones. Can you?
No.
Yeah, there's like,
I think there's one with a G.
Yeah, but creatine monohydrate is the only one you need. Brands, I can be specific. Now Sports, I'm a big fan of them. Thorn Labs is another one. They're slightly more expensive. I'm trying to think. There's a third one that I go to, but one of those two will be fine for you. They're going to fit within most anybody's budget, and that's going to be fine.
Yeah. And like, those containers have like 100 servings.
Yeah,
in them.
for sure.
So it's a very simple, non-flavored. You can mix it and whatever.
Yeah, buy the big well, not the one we saw, the one that was like 268
Yeah, that was
servings,
excessive.
something like that.
Excessive.
Like,
What's the
maybe you
shelf
don't
life
need
on that bad boy?
one. Yeah, maybe you don't need that one. But
So that's like a team. That's a team.
yeah. If
tub.
you're sharing that with
Yeah.
your roommates, like go ahead and buy that one
Yeah.
for sure. So yeah, creatine monohydrate only. Don't worry about like nothing else in it. Not mixed in with a pre-workout. That's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, creatine monohydrate. Now or Thorn Labs. But yes, creatine is, if I were to have a list of supplements, creatine would be number one, and then number two would be pretty far down. Not that number two is not also important, but creatine in my mind is, I don't want to say so important, but it's so effective for such a small, minimal investment.
Sure.
That it's a no-brainer for everybody.
And negative, like, there's just no negative.
The negative,
effects.
yeah, that's what I'm
Like,
saying. The negative side effects.
For sure.
Again, thinking long-term health span and lifespan, it increases both.
Yeah.
If you take it regularly, 3 to 5 grams regularly, ongoing, moving forward.
Yeah.
Again, there are very few exceptions, but those are all the people who are dying or half dead. So if you're one of those people,
if you're already dead, probably not going to help you.
You don't need it, and you're going to be.
You're good.
You're fine. I mean, you're not, but you. But let's not mess with you. If you're dying, don't mess with it. But everybody else, which is the bell curve, which is 80% of people or 90% of people, you should take it. That's general population. That's athletics. It's actually it's starting to be shown to actually be able to improve long duration exercise as well.
Yeah.
Not as effectively, like you said.
Well, I've seen stuff on like studies for older people with like sarcopenia and like slowing aging of muscles and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So
neurological development, nervous system function, mitochondrial function, like the benefits far outweigh the negatives that I can't think of.
Sure.
For women, it's usually like, oh, I don't want to be big and muscly. Ain't gonna happen. Like,
that's another thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just not gonna happen.
Well, I think the
weight gain.
The question that I get a lot, or the first thing that every time someone creatine, so as a female that brings it up, they're like, well, I'm gonna retain water. So I think that goes to weight gain, I think. Yeah. But yeah, well, that's what it's doing. It's drawing water into the
well.
So like
yeah. That goes into the function of it, like how it actually works. Right. So you take the creatine and your body, the reason that you have to you shouldn't load it. You don't need to load it. That's another thing. But like the reason it takes time and you don't just take it once is because it's not a stimulant. It's something that builds in your body. Right. But the thing is like for women, you will see an increase in weight over about a 4 to 6 week period of time, but then it'll actually come back down.
Sure.
Like it'll stabilize.
Sure.
So be patient during 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
But at 12 weeks, it'll stabilize. It'll come back down.
Yeah.
You're not going to look any different. If anything, you'll tighten up.
Yeah.
Like if anything.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen.
Well, I think saying about that too is like, there is some water retention. Making sure that you're staying hydrated. By being underhydrated is creatine. That's still not going to give you negative effects, but it's an extra push. Maybe if you're on creatine that you'd be hydrated and stay hydrated.
Facts.
Just saying.
Wild idea.
Anything I can push more hydration because people that's another thing. I don't have time to drink water. You don't have time to drink water? What?
Let me show you.
Step 1, drink the water. Oh, that's it. It's just a one-step process. Yeah. Okay, so you alluded to, I know, another question, and I don't know. I haven't seen anything one way or the other. I think you just said it, but loading phase, do we need it?
No.
Okay.
Because all you're doing is saturating faster, and by faster, it's like, I don't know, 3 days, 5 days, whatever. Like the muscle is going to become saturated eventually.
Right.
So it seems like the load phase was really a thing that supplement companies did in order for you to take more creatine.
Product, sure.
Yeah.
Because I don't see as much about it anymore. Because the other thing, timing of creatine. When should we take it?
Ooh, that's a good one. Again, generally speaking, I hate creating barriers, so you can take it at any time, at any day, like any time throughout the day, and it's going to be effective. But if you are looking for just, maximum effective absorption, either first thing in the morning or after your workout. Like first thing in the morning, you don't have any nutrients in your body's going to absorb it most effectively. After your workout, your muscles are ready for nutrients. So it's going to, again, most effectively do it. But are you going to see a significant increase in your performance if you do it that way?
Yeah.
You're not going to be like all of a sudden jacked if you're having creatine first thing in the morning versus like mid-morning.
I'm going to try it.
Yeah. So in my mind, I don't build barriers if they're unnecessary, and that's an unnecessary one. Take it.
You ready for the question that's going to get you fired up? You actually might be so fired up, you might just not answer.
I'll just go, all right, this has been good.
Vegan creatine.
Oh, shit. Is that a real thing?
Yep.
What the fuck do they make vegan creatine out of?
It's like, oh crap, I looked it up before I came here because I knew you were going to ask me. I don't even know. But yeah.
That wouldn't even be called creatine. It would just be whatever you made it out of. It's like I saw... What the fuck was it? Eggs made from plants. I'm like, it's not eggs at that point. It is plants.
Well, what we were talking about, the protein oats.
Yeah.
Like, everything's just labeled to sell whatever people, people vegan, vegetarian. But I will say vegetarians... If you are a vegetarian, can be beneficial to take creatine for sure because you're not getting it from your food sources.
Yeah.
Which
is generally red meat.
Right.
Yep.
I do have some vegetarian athletes, so I think for them even more so.
Yep.
Can be beneficial to take.
Most definitely.
So, yeah.
Yes. If you're taking vegan any supplements,
cut that shit out.
The answer is no. Because shit, it's not whatever it says it is. Vegan creatine is not creatine. It officially is something else. I don't even know. Like the egg made from plants from like, it's not eggs. You. Is that real?
Yes. Swear. It's not very common, but I've definitely seen vegan creatine.
Why? But creatine's
I
not
written
even...
it down. I looked it up what it was made of, but
creatine's not even... I'm like...
That's what I don't know. I'm telling you, it's just a label. It's laboratory made.
That's crazy.
It is crazy.
The world we have come to.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. Just eat whole foods and then just take supplements that are normal and have one ingredient. That's it.
It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
And yes, you do have time to eat those things.
Yes.
You do have time.
Do some basic planning and preparing and everything will be fine.
Yeah. Whole foods over liquids.
Yes.
Perfect. That just wrapped up all the 3 questions.
Facts. Done. I don't know why we just didn't do that. I can cut all the rest of that bullshit out now.
Yeah. So those literally are probably the number 3 things that I constantly hear from athletes.
Yeah.
Other than nutrient timing and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, athletes are under eating. So I think nutrient timing is important before and after practice, making sure to get to recovery and stuff, but just eat more food.
Yeah. Start
in general.
That. Yeah.
And I wouldn't even argue sometimes with what they're eating. Like, yeah, we want them ideally
just start by eating.
Yeah. Just literally just to intake more calories. Mm-hmm. And then we can tweak it from there.
Yeah.
And find throughout the day,
eat
more calories throughout the day. Start there.
Yep.
And then by the time you're a senior, maybe you'll figure it out. And then you graduate and then not lift or ever do anything active the rest of your life.
Yeah. Great. I did my job as a coach. Did my job as a coach.
You survived through your junior year. Victory.
Done.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what do you think?
It was fun.
Yeah?
Yeah. It helps when there's easy topics to soapbox about.
Yeah.
But...
We'll have to find some more challenging ones. Not challenging. I mean, the time one's a little bit challenging, but
yeah,
we'll get some good ones next time.
Okay.
Sound good?
Sounds good.
Good work.
Thanks. First podcast.
On it.
I was a little nervous, not gonna lie, but it helps that we're just talking.
No, that's what I said. As soon as I got you rolling, everything was gonna be just fine.
Yeah.
because, I mean, it's just me.
Plus, these are like literally normal conversations we have on a daily basis.
Yeah. Exactly.
We just recorded this one.
Yeah, that's all that happened is you got plugged into an hour and a half of our day.
Yeah.
Of things we talk about.
Perfect.
Although I learned a little bit that I didn't know. So it's good.
That was good.
Yeah. Maybe next time you can ask me about my life and what I've done so you can
help.
We don't want that.
Then what happens?
We don't want that. We don't need more of that. All right, y'all. Thanks for listening to us. Appreciate you. Until next time, creatine monohydrate.